What is going on, you guys? It's that time. You've seen the premiere. My buddy Mike, Canadian Cards, and I are going to talk about wrestling. And I'll tell you right now, he and I are not the most experienced collectors. We're actually both very, very new at collecting wrestling and all that. So forgive us if our terminology's wrong. If maybe we don't know as much stuff as you do, because I can guarantee you there's a whole lot of you that know way more than he and I do about this. The other day when I did my announcement video on, I guess, starting to collect wrestling and all that, I made a boo-boo. I made a mistake, and I said that wrestling was fake. And so I would like to apologize for that. A lot of y'all brought to my attention like predetermined and scripted and all that, but it's not fake. And I think you're 100% correct when you say that. There's nothing fake about a steel chair going across your head, or there's nothing fake about a 250-pound man landing on you out of nowhere, or a Ric Flair chop going across your chest that you can hear 3 counties over. There's nothing fake about that. So I apologize. And that goes back to the terminology that I'm sure Mike is the same, and I can definitely attest myself don't know. So without any further ado, let me bring in my brother from the north, my Canadian friend, Canadian Cards. Mike, what is going on, my friend?
How are you, buddy?
Whew, doing good, man. Doing good.
I think you're right. There's definitely nothing fake about getting a chair across the head. I don't know how that could be fake.
That's something that, like, maybe we can do at a national or something. You know?
All right. I would love to hit you with a chair. As long as you're on the receiving end, I'm all for it.
Yeah, that's why I wasn't thinking that way. I was kind of thinking like the opposite of that.
I figured you would.
Oh, let's see who we got here, man. We got Bart, we got Eric, we got Carlos.
Yeah.
Neat. It's already a success, man. We're good.
Exactly, man. It's all good.
How are things up in Canada these days?
Things are good. Last week going into Labor Day weekend, it's been a little cooler. Our summers are pretty hot, but last week or so, the wife has encouraged me that we don't need our air conditioning on, and you can tell that fall is around the corner, at least up in Canada. That's for sure. How about you?
Like out of nowhere this weekend, like it's been like a 95 to 100 degrees here every day, and the humidity has been insane. And then out of nowhere this weekend, it's like 85 degrees and no humidity. So It's been extremely nice.
That's great.
That's enough, I guess, of the chit chat. We'll get into why everyone's here, and that's talk about some wrestling. I recently got a little frustrated, as some of y'all might have seen in a video I did, a small little rant, and I decided that I want to kind of take a step back and get back to a more simple collecting of enjoying and love, and all of that brought me back to when I was a child in wrestling and all that. And since then, my 10-year-old, who you might hear throughout this live deal, he and I have started watching current day wrestling for about the last 3 weeks. So it's really kind of came full circle for me. So for you, Mike, like what brought you into wrestling, or maybe some of your earliest memories of watching wrestling?
Well, I think I mentioned it in my last video. Up in Ontario, Canada here, we used to have what's known as Maple Leaf Wrestling. Used to be broadcasted on local TV, just like much of the regional wrestling was shown throughout the 70s and the 80s before WWF/E took over. Right. And it was like anything. It was entertainment, and I was a lot younger, so I always thought to myself, oh my God, like, talk about chairs over the head and guys bleeding. And I was like, what, as a child, you're just intrigued about these guys just kind of street fighting in a ring. But, my dad worked with a guy at one point who became a wrestler and took me to the old Hamilton Forum back in the days, which has since been torn down, and, got me into it. And, it's probably been quite a while until you and I talked about it, and we both kind of shared this love of bringing back something from our childhood that made us happy, and I think that's where the connection came in.
Yeah, no doubt. I'd say for me, I guess I kind of came in. I'm a little bit younger than you, but like I remember, like the Attitude Era was a big thing for me. I remember like Monday Night Raw. My
Right.
parents, we didn't have TV in every bedroom like a lot of people do these days. My parents had a TV in their room, and we had one in the living room or dining room. And so my old man would definitely be bogarting the TV like you couldn't change anything. Like he had the remote in his hand all the time.
Absolutely.
Definitely no changing his mind. So my parents would let me go in their bedroom, and I'd sit on their bed and watch Monday Night Raw. And I mean, it was like religiously every Monday night you could count that I would be there watching those guys. And just the storylines of back then, and I told my wife a couple of weeks ago, like if there was an occupation in the early 90s, like they had a wrestler's gimmick was after it.
Absolutely.
I thought it was so funny, like, because my wife's in the dental field now, and I was telling her, I'm like, man, they even had a dentist, man. There was a dude named Isaac Yankum that had like these gross teeth.
Yeah.
And she was laughing and couldn't believe it. I'm like, they even had a trash man. What was it? Duke the Dumpster Drosy, I believe his name was. I'm like, man, if there was a job, there was a wrestler that had that gimmick. And I thought that era was so cool because of that.
Yeah. And that's the thing that you touch on about the 90s. And I mean, for me, like we said, I'm a little bit older, just a little bit. But I mean, I started watching wrestling in the 70s. And I can tell you, as a matter of factly, like the gimmicks have evolved more to make these wrestlers more of character than they were back in the day. I mean, you can go back to watch YouTube and watch some wrestling from back in the 50s. And I mean, back in the day, it was very little gimmick. It was all technique. People wanted to go in and watch wrestlers wrestle. And I think it's evolved in such, probably in, 15, 20 years into even more so what it's become today. And now it's just the entertainment aspect of it is huge.
Yeah, I would say, like from what I've seen, now granted, I said my son and I have only been watching now for about 3 weeks. So keep in mind, there's like a 20-year gap here where I didn't watch any. Like,
right.
So I almost feel like from what I've seen, this limited area right now, this 3-week area versus what I remember for years and years and years of the Attitude Era, it definitely seems like the storylines now aren't as ridiculous and outrageous. And that's kind of what I liked about it back then. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
We had here in the comment, the Repo Man. You had a Repo Man, and then you had what the Big Boss Man was like going after him.
Oh yeah.
I forget the guy's name, but there was another dude that was like a prisoner that came out like in an orange jumpsuit, and it was just like these total outlandish stories. But that's, to me, like as a kid, what made it so great. And one thing I'll definitely say I could tell a difference. I don't believe you've watched any current wrestling.
Not much.
The dudes nowadays are freaking Jack Diesel, man. Like,
oh yeah,
shit, man. Like they all have 6-packs. They all have muscles in places like my fat ass didn't even know where muscles go.
I think that's part of it too. I think wrestling, along with any other sport, is you look at football, hockey, anything. Guys get bigger, stronger, faster, fitter. They have to be. I mean, for what they put themselves through these days. I mean, I just can't look at someone from today who's got the 6-pack and he's just, he's pumped right up, and then compare him to like a King Kong Bundy. Like on the fitness level, there's no comparison. Now, you know what I mean? But on the other side of it, there's like the entertainment and the gimmick aspect of it. It's King Kong Bundy. He's like 400 or 500 pounds, and listen, these guys, for their size, they could move. There's no doubt about it. You could not go in there and be just a slug that just kind of came in and rolled around. It just didn't work. There had to be a little bit more to your game and your gimmick.
I'd say, and I talked about this with you the other day on the phone. When I was a kid, and I say kid, I mean I was watching wrestling from like I'd probably say age 7 to, like I said in one of my past videos, like 14ish. I don't know the exact number, but around there. But like I had no idea that Vince McMahon owned the company. Like I thought he was just a commentator. I thought he was just an average Joe, average employee, because like they would bring on like Gorilla Monsoon and they would say the acting president or acting chairman.
Sure.
And I thought he was like the owner. You know what I mean? I had no idea the guy that was just doing play-by-play was the owner of the whole damn thing. Which like blew my mind as I became an adult.
Well, and that's the thing too. I think if everyone knows what Vince McMahon is like, I mean, I have to think that, as this got bigger and bigger, he wanted to make sure that everything went his way according to his script, his plan. And it's kind of one of those things that I'll do the announcing until I'm comfortable with someone coming in and taking over. I was watching on YouTube the other day where Vince McMahon was his normal self, and it was like 1977, and he was playing right into the wrestlers and the threats and all that, and don't smirk at me. But, and then you get guys like, Mean Gene Okerlund that comes in who could hold their own. And I think that's probably when Vince was more, okay, I can get more involved in the back, behind the scenes, and we have some capable people here to take it over. So, I mean, overall, he did a fantastic job with the company. No doubt about it.
Yeah, I agree with that. President Jack Tunney, I remember hearing that a ton as a kid.
Oh, yeah.
And like I honestly, and I mean, I probably watch 2 to 3 hours of wrestling now here at the house a day, but it's like the older stuff. Like right now, I mean, I'm kind of focusing on just pay-per-views.
Right.
And I've been going year by year. So I started kind of in the middle of, so I have the WWE network. I'm kind of jumping around here, but little backstory. I have the WWE network. So I started in 93 and I watched all the 93 and all the 94. Now I'm at 95. So I'm watching all of those. And so I seen a interview today with Jerry Lawler and Stone Cold Steve Austin. Stone Cold does like a podcast type of interview on WWE Network. And he was talking about to Jerry the King Lawler about how did he become commentary. And you might remember this, Mike, about when Randy Savage and Vince were doing play-by-play.
Yep.
And they brought in Lawler. They said literally one day, like at the freaking snap of a finger, Randy Savage just didn't show up.
Right.
And they were like, what the hell? And they told Vince, like, hey, man, you got to come check this shit out and look on the TV. And then there was Randy Savage on WCW when they were having the wrestling wars.
Right. Back in the days when, was it Eric Bischoff ran the WCW and Vince McMahon was WWFE. I'm not sure when that whole thing changed. I know it had something to do with the World Wildlife Foundation, that they already had WWF and they had to change it, so they went to the World Wrestling Entertainment. But you're right, it's and I think the transition with Lawler coming in, he was always good. He was always a good speaker behind the microphone, and the transition was just perfect. And he was a veteran of wrestling, so it worked out perfectly.
Yeah. So let's get into like maybe some of your personal Mount Rushmore. So not who do you think is the greatest?
Right.
Just go off like who is your Mount Rushmore of your favorite? We'll do baby faces and heels. So maybe we'll start with like your top 4 favorite baby faces.
Well, I think I've got four guys, but I think if you've been watching wrestling a lot over the years, you always knew that, some guys came in as heels, turned into baby faces, went back to heels. Like it seemed to be a revolving door depending on the storyline or the script. It was always like for me, ultimately my favorite babyface guy was Roddy Piper, when he had Piper's Pit and he would have guests in there, and whether they were good guys or bad guys, he was always cutting them up.
Good selection.
Yeah,
Good choice.
Macho Man was another one. He came in like a blaze of glory, like I'm this bad guy, and you don't look at Elizabeth and all this, but then the fans kind of turned and said, no, we like Macho Man, what he's all about. And for me, it wasn't so much their wrestling technique as it was the character that they were. And for me, I mean, you think of Macho Man with, all his gimmicks and what he wore and the way he spoke to to me, that was great. And yeah, oh yeah, cream rising to the top. Guys like that. And then even to put it back further, there's a couple other guys from the 1970s that, when I was younger, I used to like. And that was one guy's name was Bobo Brazil, wrestler out of Arkansas.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that guy.
Yeah, and he was just like a lot of technique, all about not so much gimmicky, but he was just a fan favorite. And the other guy was Haystacks Calhoun, and Haystacks Calhoun would come in. He was like Uncle Elmer. He would have the overalls and the white t-shirt, and he would literally wear a chain link around with a horseshoe on around his neck. And he was about 600 pounds, man, and he would just crush guys. And I used to just think, man, look at the size of this guy just crushing people. So, I mean, those were some of the guys that they were fan favorites or baby faces. So how about yourself? Who are you preferential
to? So once again, we're going to go with these are our favorites. Maybe not, because I have a feeling like my favorites may not be, people might be like, how the hell did you get to those?
Yeah.
So we're looking baby faces. And like Mike just said, all of these guys did baby face and heel. If you're in the game long enough, you do both sides. But I'm talking about, I specifically remember these guys as baby faces right now.
Right.
So I'm going to go with my first one. My number one is Razor Ramon, I think, or Scott Hall.
Scott Hall, yeah.
Dude, Razor Ramon to me was so funny, man. Like, I remember thinking, like, man, this was a bad SOB. I'm probably 10, 11 at the time, and he's coming down with this swagger. He has these razor images like on his trunks and on his knee pads, and he's freaking taking out his toothpick and flicking it in people's faces. He always got one hair that was like,
yeah.
I'm like, dude, that's a bad dude, man. And what's funny is years and years later, I found out, I think he was like acting like he was Cuban or Puerto Rican and something like that. I don't.
Yeah, Latino of some sort.
Right, but then I come to find out, like, he's like white as could be. Like, I seen an interview with him, and he straight up said that himself. That's his words, not mine.
Yeah.
He was like, man, when they sold me this gimmick, like, I'm like, how am I supposed to talk with an accent?
Right.
And I always thought that was funny. My second one, I think this is going to be a lot of people's favorite, The Undertaker.
Oh, yeah.
Like, holy smokes, man. Like, that dude's career is just phenomenal, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And all of the different gimmicks of Undertaker through the years. Because if you remember, like, he went through a phase, I think in the late 90s, my era might be wrong, where he was like an American badass, where he was like a biker.
Right.
You know, he kind of ditched the dead man gimmick. And
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Him, Stone Cold,
Stone Cold was good.
I'm from Texas, and a lot of people from Texas are proud to be from Texas.
Sure.
And he would come out and he was like, yeah, I'm from Texas. And I'm like,
yeah,
oh, dude, he's from Texas. I'm from Texas. And he's freaking smashing beers all over his face, freaking throwing the fingers. I'm like, dude, that's dude, man.
And those were real beers. They weren't non-alcoholic beers.
Oh yeah, we don't do no non-alcoholic crap around here. So Stone Cold, and then my last one, I would say for honestly, his full body of work would be Mick Foley. The Mick Foley, the Dude Love, the Mankind, the Cactus Jack, that whole thing where I forget. Oh man. And this is one of those times, guys, where you're going to have to forgive me, okay? My terminology might be wrong, but I think it was like a King of the Ring back in the day or something that he came in like 3 different times, like Dude Love, and he got thrown over the ring, and then he came in as Mankind, and he got thrown, and Cactus Jack came in. It was so funny, man.
Oh yeah, it's good. And didn't he also have Didn't he have Socko? He wore the sock. Yeah, and put it in people's
mandible claw. They called it the mandible claw.
That's it. That's great.
So one thing I do think is funny. So you just gave your top 4. I gave my top 4, and so this is what I think is just great about wrestling. Is you notice neither one of us said Hulk Hogan.
No,
you didn't hear John Cena. You didn't hear Shawn Michaels. You didn't hear Ric Flair.
No,
and those are like maybe. I mean, maybe for the company, some of the biggest names out there.
Yeah.
So I think that's cool. So what about heels? Or you know what? I'll go first with heels. And
you go first with heels, and then I'll follow it up. So
my all-time favorite wrestler, babyface or heel, my all-time favorite is the $1 Million Man.
Ted DiBiase.
So I liked him a lot when I was a kid, and I don't know why, because he came off as such a pompous ass and arrogant and all that, but I think I liked it even more after I became an adult and I found out that like Vince would actually give him stacks of money to keep his gimmick going off camera.
Oh,
and like he was living this life all the time. So I always thought that was so cool. Honky Tonk Man,
I'm cool, I'm cocky, and I'm bad.
But I always thought it was funny that like he would come out there and do these.
Yeah.
And like the music would be playing, but his fingers would be nowhere near the guitar string.
He'd just be holding it, moving the guitar.
Like his hips. Oh, dude. Just great. Jerry Lawler. Oh, dude. And remember, because of my age, I don't really remember Jerry Lawler as a wrestler. I remember as a commentator that would wrestle from time to time. So like a match I just watched yesterday was, I don't remember the pay-per-view event, but it was a Kiss My Feet match. And it was between him and Bret the Hitman Hart.
Oh no.
And it ended up being of course Jerry Lawler lost, and he was boasting before about how he hasn't washed his feet in a month and how terrible they were. And so freaking Bret Hart pinned him. He freaking puts his foot up to Jerry Lawler's face, but then he grabs Lawler's foot and makes him kiss his own foot.
Oh no.
It was the greatest thing ever.
That's amazing.
And then my last one, maybe very, very non-traditional, and I have no clue why I like this dude, but Gold Dust. Dusty Rhodes. I thought that was one of the craziest, weirdest gimmicks ever. And I just liked his style. I mean, his gimmick was kind of a little bit out there for me as a 12, 13-year-old. I remember thinking like, oh, dude, like this dude's licking the freaking ring and crawling all over the freaking mat like some kind of Sex Panther. I'm like, dude, what the hell is going on here? But
I love it.
So that's my $1 Million Man, Honky Tonk Man, Jerry Lawler, and Gold Dust.
Well, those are 4 beauties, man. Like they all great characters.
There it is. Right there, Dustin. Excuse me.
That's it, Dustin Rhodes. Yeah, his dad was Playboy Dusty Rhodes, wasn't it?
Yeah, did he? Yeah.
Yeah. I'd have to say my heels. Like if I work backwards, like oldest, there was a guy from Michigan that played, and I can't remember his last name. His first name was Eddie, but he was the original Sheik back in the 70s. He was managed by the Grand Wizard, who was portrayed by a guy named Ernie Roth. Also, he at one point he referred to himself as Abdullah Farouk, and he always wore those, those like LeVar Burton glasses from Star Trek, and he wore a Fez hat, like the Shriners, and he was just, he started the whole management thing going, him and Classy Freddie Blassie. But the Sheik was the best because he would come in and he would want to, he claimed he was from Syria, and he would always bow on the carpet, and his opponents never wanted him to bow and do his little prayer. So he was one. Another guy was a guy, some of the guys out there, I see Eric says Abdullah the Butcher. He was a good one too. But another one from like the 70s era was a guy named Pampero Firpo. And if anybody out there doesn't know who Pampero Firpo was, he used to come around, and he was probably about 5'8", about 270 pounds. And he wore the one-piece tight, like the muscle shirt and trunks. And he was covered in hair. He had a full beard down to here and this huge black afro. And he used to carry around like a shrunken head. And he'd always be like he would show his opponent the shrunken head when he got in the ring, and they'd be like, oh, like, what's going on? And he would chew on wood and all kinds of stuff. And then I think the other two guys who were good heels, more in the 80s, was the missing link, who used to be Dewey Robertson from the 70s. Face painted. I think he started in the AWA and then made his way to the WWF back in like 84.
That link you sent me where they're doing that interview and he's like smashing himself with the chair.
Yeah, he's just smashing his own head with a wooden chair. And by the end of it, he's bleeding. And I'm thinking to myself, like, listen, predetermined, fake, whatever you want to call it, that dude is smashing himself in the head with a wooden chair. And I guess my fourth heel, who it was more towards the 90s in the WCW, was Sid Vicious. If ever you didn't want to meet someone in a dark alley, man, it was Sid Vicious. Like,
nice, dude.
Yeah, I was like in my mid to late 20s in the 90s, and Sid Vicious was like a scary character. Big, tall dude, long hair, and just crazed look in his eyes. Every time he spoke, it was like he was about to pop off and just go ballistic. So, yeah, I mean, a lot of the guys in the chat are putting in so many great names. Nikolai Volkov.
There's a ton of, man.
There's tons. Like, it's great that everyone in our chat, Garrett, is kind of throwing these in because there's so many guys that over the years you forget about. You just forget about whether they weren't that popular or, they just weren't, one of the in guys. And like I seen someone the Mass Collector put Nikolai Volkov singing the Russian national anthem. That was the best. And people would just boo the hell out of him. And he just sang the whole thing. And it was fantastic. So, to me, I preferred the heels over the babyface guys because they just brought in such a different dynamic into the ring, and it was fantastic to watch.
Yeah, no doubt. So I was kind of writing down some names earlier of big time heels that I didn't name and that you didn't name either. So like Vince McMahon, he had definitely part of his career where he was catching major heat. Paul Heyman.
Yep.
He's another dude that people just love to hate. Bobby the Brain Heenan. Someone did write that.
Yeah, I've seen that come up.
Owen Hart.
Yeah.
Man, dude, that dude. He was definitely someone that you just love to freaking hate on.
Right.
And one guy that I've been watching now that I don't know what you would consider him, a heel or baby face that's current, is Bray Wyatt, the Fiend. I think his character is so freaking cool.
That's the guy you were telling me comes in with the mask.
Yeah, it's like this evil-looking clown, man. He's like just a bad dude, man. Real tough guy. So that's it. That's our Mount Rushmore. We'll close this with one more question. But before I get to this last question, if y'all have things that y'all would like us to talk about, put it in the comment section by all means. Not the comment section of the live feed right now, because that might be tough for us to see. But after this kind of gets archived in a couple hours from now, there'll be a fresh comment section on like a normal YouTube video. Write it in there. I plan on doing these about every 2 to 3 weeks. We can't do them every week just because we don't have the knowledge. We definitely have the passion to do it, but we just don't have the knowledge. And maybe in future episodes, maybe we could bring in definitely some of y'all and have me, Mike, and one of you guys, and y'all could be telling us about some of your awesome memories of wrestling and maybe some of your collection, or share some of your collecting stories.
Yeah, no doubt. That'd be great. And just to answer vintage oddball cards, Rick, he's asking, is Hulk Hogan the rookie card, the Mickey Mantle of wrestling? I would have to say it is. I mean, you know, there's some wrestling sets that Parkhurst put out in the 50s that, you know, I think there's guys like Gorgeous George and Whipper Billy Watson and those guys. But really, you know, I can't think, if you had to think of one wrestler in the world, there's no doubt about it, and one guy that put it on the map has to be Hulk Hogan. And he definitely is the Mickey Mantle of wrestling as far as the sports card. And I think is it 1982, Garrett? The
All-Stars,
Pro Wrestling All-Star Series, And
so I'm not going to tell y'all here, but literally minutes, I'm talking literally minutes before we went live, I closed the deal on a huge lot of cards. I showed Mike.
It's incredible.
All wrestling cards, some big boy cards, some very expensive cards that I will show that in either a future video of mine or a future live event when I get them in hand, you know. But you don't want to count your chickens before they hatch, because they're not here just yet. There's so many people are like, talk about the cards, talk about wrestling or the autographs. As far as autographs, the only thing I could tell you right now is I sent off to a signing earlier this week for a Dutch Mantel.
Nice.
And then I sent off 2 TTMs, one to the Iron Sheik and one to CM Punk. So
nice.
I definitely am going to be sending off some more this week, but that's kind of all I can really say right now, and I can't really show you anything because I haven't got anything in.
I just have to, if I could just jump off topic for a second. I'm just kind of reading the stream, and it's interesting. Like Grant Gaskill is saying, he's got some 1918 wrestling cards. To me, that's amazing. Like, I didn't even know something like that existed. I mean,
I've never heard of that.
Yeah, that's got to be in and around like the T206 era. You know, like, that's fantastic that he has those. And just a lot of the comments, it's great. Like, you know, Otto Olson's talking about Buddy Rogers, and there's so many great names that people are just popping in that I can't even, you know, keep up with it, because you're talking and I'm watching and I'm thinking, you know, the Steiner brothers and Ravishing Rick Rude and guys like this, Kurt Hennig. Like, it's fantastic that guys are actually bringing up what, you know, they remember and what's cool to them. And I think that's what it's all about, you know.
I think it's funny that people are like, JT right here is like, details. And I'm like, I can't give y'all me personally, I can't give y'all details.
Yeah. I
like
mean,
my intro, like, man, I'm still new at this, you know?
Yeah. Like, we love our wrestling past, but we are, like you said, by no means experts on it. And that's why I think it's great that Garrett has told you all, you know, when this stream actually goes to video, I think it'd be great if you guys could put down things that you want us to talk about. Yeah, like the Mask Collector, Kamala. He just died like a month ago. Like, stuff like that we can bring up for future topics. And, you know, hopefully this kind of gains a little traction, keeps people engaged. And, you know, people are, I think it's great. Like, there's a bunch of people in here. I didn't know how many people we were going to get. in here watching, but I think it's fantastic that,
What
people are in here contributing. It's great.
I love, dude, is how many live things have you seen where no one's talking? I've seen
Right.
my fair share.
Yeah.
And I have no clue, and I honestly don't care how many people are in here because it seems like
Yeah.
the people that are in here are just chatting it up big time. But I am going to put you on the spot right now, Mike, with this question right here.
Uh-oh.
What would your gimmick be if you were a wrestler?
Oh, my Lord. What would my gimmick be? I don't know. I'd probably be some Canadian lumberjack guy. I was gonna say a Mountie, but there was a guy back in the '80s, Jacques Rougeau, who he's a guy from Quebec, and he was the Mountie. That's what he came in as, and I don't know. I'd have to be probably like Canadian lumberjack or something like that. How about you?
Said, what about Mr. Brawny? You could be called Mr. Brawny, like the paper towel guy.
Like Mr. G. Brony?
Yeah.
How about you? What would you be?
I don't know. It sucks. I had that whole time that you were talking to think about it. And like all I could think about is like just like some kind of sailor, like some kind of, because I'm in the
You
Navy.
could be like you're in the Navy. You could be like Maverick from Top Gun or something like that.
Like the fat version, dude. That'd be great.
Fat Vrick. You and me could be Maverick and Goose. How's that? I could be the co-pilot that gets killed early. You can be the guy that gets the chick at the end.
Look at JT dropping some.
See, there you go. Cowboy, you're from Houston, man. I think that fits. I think that's fit. We could be a tag team. Yeah.
Tag
with the tugboat. Yeah, exactly.
That could be you and me, dude. Tugboat and earthquake.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt at all.
So we'll wrap it up with this last question. That was really funny. That was awesome. Question, JT. Is there anything you're looking at right now into buying or anything maybe you're researching or actively purchasing?
Well, like I've kind of showed you off camera, and that Garrett and I have been really, I think probably a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, we drummed up the conversation offline about, wrestling and what we liked about it. And, I think you said it as well as I agreed. With the state of the hobby, things are so much more expensive right now on what to collect. And you said, you know what? I want to get to the wrestling cards because it makes me happy. It brings me back to my childhood. And that's what the hobby is all about. I was texting because I'm Carlos, who's another fellow Canadian. He texted me today. He said, "This is fantastic. You guys are going live. It's great." He said, "I watched Garrett's video about his new PC about wrestling and the passion and the joy that came through you in that video." He was like, "That's what it's all about." And it is. We're not here to please anybody. We're here to please ourselves. And if we can bring some people in that, wrestling's one of those things, Garrett, that I think people are like closet wrestling fans. The old adage where, oh yeah, I'm a grown man and I collect baseball cards. Well, I'm a grown man and I actually like wrestling. I think that's another aspect to it, and everyone who collects, I'm sure at some point has loved wrestling. But for me, I've got a few sets that I've showed you off screen, and that 82 set, as more so, not so much the 82, because I know you're really big into that, and I like that, but I'm more looking at like the Parkhurst, the early 50s stuff, because I think to me, that's like what I thought was the original stuff until Grant mentioned there's wrestling cards from the 1918, and that really intrigues me to look more into that.
Hey, Grant, if you're still here, can you let us know, like, what's that set called?
Yeah, that would be great, Grant, if he could throw that in, because he's got some from 1918, and I don't know who makes it. I don't know if it's Allen and Ginter or what it is, because I know Allen and Ginter did a set in the early 1900s where, they do rowing and boxers and wrestlers, and I don't know like if that's the same one he's talking about.
Yeah, no doubt. So for me, like you kind of, I don't want to say spilt the beans. I spilt the beans on it myself. I'm definitely looking at I would say all 80s wrestling, but specifically focusing on the 82 and 83. More the 82. But I just like so many of those dudes and those sets. So that's definitely what I am focusing on. And I'm coming to find out, like I told you, I wanted to do some wrestling because it's not as expensive. Well, that's a lie.
Absolutely. I think everything in this hobby, it doesn't, if you want to pick up cycling cards, it's probably going to cost you an arm and a leg. And there's Grant saying it's Ogden cigarettes. So that's really back in the days. That's fantastic. Thank you, Grant, for sharing that with us.
Hey, that Parkhurst set that you were talking about, is that like a traditional size card, or are they bigger or smaller?
I think they're a little bit bigger than a traditional size card. I know Parkhurst, from what I understand, I think they made a 1954 set, and I think they made like a 55/56 set. I haven't got too heavily into it. It may mimic more along the lines of the old Parkhurst hockey cards in the 50s. Some of them were smaller, some of them were same size. I'm not sure if any were bigger, but the size of them or the outline of them mimics what one set from the Parkhurst hockey set of the 50s looks like. So it could be pretty much the same size, but
okay. Yeah, Grant,
it's not cheap. You're right. It is not cheap.
Grant, that'd work. I mean, you can talk to Eric if you want, and he could send him over to us. That's totally fine.
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great.
Man, I had a blast.
So did I. I mean,
don't want to go too much longer just because we're going to sound like a bunch of babbling idiots.
Yeah.
But
more so than we already are.
Well, that's a fact. We're going to show our colors. But I am absolutely so thrilled and happy with how this was. This was very fun. The comment section was just flying, man. I absolutely love the interaction that you guys gave me and Mike, and I appreciate it. So, me and Mike will talk later. We'll do this again, like I said, 2-3 weeks. What you got, Mike? You got anything?
Just to remind the guys that were on here, once you kind of post this as a video, after we get off the live stream, if they could comment what they'd like us to talk about, what they'd like, our opinions of what, there's so much, like you said at the beginning, we are by no way experts in this field, but we want to learn and we're excited about it, and just, help us out with it, and we'll talk more. I can talk about wrestling and anything that I enjoy all the time, but I'm not going to get on here for an hour and just have dead air. So the more people in the audience there can fill it up with us, and I'm sure you and I can both get our heads together and take care of that.
Yeah, and there's Bart saying we did an average job. So I mean, you got
yeah. As long as we're average, we don't want to be top dog.
Yeah.
Because you want to be back page news, right? We want to be on those back pages.
Yeah,
no, we want those back pages. That's where we're keen, right?
I hope y'all enjoyed it, guys. It's definitely sounds like Mike did. I know I did.
I had a blast.
Till next time, adios, be safe, bye-bye, toodles, y'all.
See you guys.